Hey guys, can you hear me? I was in a different Zoom room and I couldn't find you guys. But
You
now,
can.
hi,
I'm waiting and I'm not here. Where are you?
everybody. Awesome. So hi. Um, I was in a different Zoom room, but I found you now. So this is awesome. Yay. So first of all, how could I not start by thanking you guys for buying my book and for all the comments and love and sweetness that you shared so freely and generously. I really, really appreciate you all so much. And it's truly extraordinary, like what a community this is. And you don't have to show up for me or for anyone else the way that you guys have been, but you, boy, have you been. And everybody feels it. And I hope that you get all of it back. Awesome. You're all like, I got 2 copies. I got 2 copies. Yeah. I'm going to think about what we can do for those of you who did that, because that's like extra, extra, extra nice. I wonder how many of you who did that are coming to the live event, because maybe we could do something on the on that weekend, on somehow something like a party just for those people, maybe. And maybe that would inspire those of you who didn't, like, go ahead and get it. And by the way, you don't have to get only the hardcover. You could also buy it on Audible. You could listen to it because I recorded it myself. Here's the good news about the book that's helpful to you guys is that the book actually is working. People are feeling like they are getting a lot out of it, which is so good because, we all have imposter syndrome, including me. And when I was going through writing the book, I didn't know if it was good. I've had that with songs, every song I've written too. Like I'll write a song and then until I play it for someone and they go, "Oh my gosh, that was so good." Then I'm like, "Oh, good. It's good." Like it's really hard to know, right? It's really hard to know. It's like sometimes you try on a dress and you come out and your girlfriend's like, "No." And then you try something else on and everyone's like, "Yes." You're like, "Oh, yes. Interesting. They're seeing something I'm not." So the best news ever is that people have been saying these literal words. The book is changing my life. Like I'm hearing that in my DMs all over the place. And that is, how great is that? This woman, I may have mentioned this to you last week. She wrote a review on Amazon that she's a nurse and she works with cancer patients. And she said, "I can tell you that this book is like medicine because it makes people feel seen." And she said, "That's the greatest gift you give." And I thought, boy, is that the nicest thing I ever heard. So what's also nice about the book is, anyone who reads this, they're going to get something out of it no matter what their passion. But this literally, the beginning of the book talks about my personal journey, which is all music. And so it lays it out, like everything that I did. And then in the second half of the book, there's all of these like nitty gritty things that you want to think about doing, from figuring out like who your client is, because this is a business, right? It's not a hobby. Remember that. And also like how to do outreach. In fact, the email template that Tim Ferriss gave me is in the book, like literally like word for word, like how do you send an email? What do you write? How do you get people to, so there's a lot of nitty gritty details. And then there's also a lot of just important stuff, which I wanted to talk about today, actually, because some of the important stuff is not the nitty gritty details. Some of it is knowing what it is that we need to do, right? Like, let me give you a sense of what I'm saying. Every single day, I feel like everyone is like, what am I supposed to do? What's the step? What's the email? Who's the whatever? And we've talked a lot about belief and all of that. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about right now is inspiration. What I'm talking about right now is being in alignment with yourself. You know how sometimes you take a walk or you took a shower or you were somewhere and the moment hits you and you get this idea. That moment when you get an idea for a song, you get an idea for someone you want to produce with, you get an idea for something, that thing that happens, we want to cultivate an environment for that to happen as much as possible. And for creatives, that's extremely important to be able to predict that. If you are Diane Warren or David Foster, this is your job. Like, you've got to come up with something good every day. Like, if you're a songwriter, you're not making widgets, right? You're not just like stamping something out. So there's got to be something that's coming out. And so what we want to do is figure out how to excavate and how to work the process so that we know how to get ourselves back to that moment where we can actually be creative. This is really essential. I remember there was a point in my creative journey where I felt like, wait a minute, I have to be inspired. Like I can't just write a song. It's not like trying to think, what would it be like? You know, if I make chopsticks, right? So I make a prototype and then I could just bang them out, right? Put them through a machine. But if I'm making a piece of art, right, then I have to actually have something to say. I have to have something to make. Even if I have a client, which by the way helps because someone can give you a prompt, right? Write a song about empowerment, write a song about discovery, write a song about love and love that hurts, write a song about self-development or whatever. All of that helps, absolutely. But still, if it's going to be beautiful and someone's going to feel it, it has to come from a real place. And so how many of you, we've talked about this book before, but how many of you have done something like The Artist's Way? You've read through the book. Just go like this if you've read it. Okay, awesome. So most of the people that I know who are artists, this is part of their this is part of what makes them productive. I don't know how many of you have heard this, but Jerry Seinfeld, every single day, he writes for 3 hours. He writes comedy every single day because he has to write a lot of good comedy, which means he has to write a lot. So he finds the good stuff. I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. No. I just sneezed so bad. I think it went away. Anyways, so he writes every single day. So he takes out a calendar and he puts an X through every day of the calendar so that he writes. But the rest of the day, in order so that he can write, he does creative things. He takes himself to a museum. He goes by himself to a movie. He books himself to see a play because he has to observe life and he has to spend a lot of time making space for himself to get inspired, right? You can't just keep staring at a computer and become an amazing songwriter. Like, what do you have to say? Like, where's the actual inspiration? And so there's a balance. Yeah, exactly. I'm not reading all the comments, but I just saw Christina said in Brian Grazer's podcast, exactly. He challenges himself every single week to have what he calls a curiosity conversation where he puts it on the calendar. Like this is an essential part of his week where he's going to have a conversation with someone who's interesting to him, who does something completely outside of what he does. So he'll talk to someone who knows Mandarin. He'll talk to somebody who is like one of the greatest hikers. He'll talk to somebody who is an astronaut. He will just put himself out of his comfort zone just to get curious so he can see what's coming in. And that's what we do when we play. That's what we do when we get away from the computer and we go and we spend time. Because I'll tell you what, every time I've done sort of that next frontier and I've set something on fire in the best way, that came from something in here. It came from this little whisper, this little idea, this little piece of curiosity, but it has to come from this alignment with myself. Does that make sense? And so we have to have a process where we're setting ourselves up for that. You know, they have to go together, right? I mean, what would happen to somebody if you just sat them down and said, okay, so send an email every single day and think about your client. Where's the heart? Where's the artistry? Where's the inspiration? All of that's going to come from you actually stepping away, right? So I told you I was going to read you a piece of the book, and I wanted to read you a part of a chapter where I talk a little bit about some of this. It's actually in chapter 9. Let me just find it. And I want to read a little piece of it, and then I want to talk about it a little bit. Okay. So I'm just trying to see which part of this chapter should I read to you? Okay, let me just dive in. All right, so this is chapter 9, and at the beginning is a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert, Liz Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love and Big Magic. And she said, do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you? And so that's really a good place to start. That's the whole point, is that I think to the extent that we can unleash and let the faucet sort of go, we're going to pull out the brilliant pieces. We're going to find the things that have to be said. And it's kind of a process. You know, people say all the time they get writer's block, but no one really says they get talker's block. You know what I mean? So like, what is that? Why is that? Well, when we're writing something down, we start to judge it and we start to critique it. And so we actually we stop before we begin, and we're like, but when someone asks you a question, you have something to say. What happens is the more you talk, you actually start to clarify for yourself even what you mean. You give yourself like time to figure that out. And that's really a similar metaphor to creativity. A lot of times when people go to write the song, they start to sit down and write lyrics and they get out their eraser, they scratch it out. No, that's not what I mean. But if you give yourself time to even explore and time to let all of this out, all this magic, that's why in Julia Cameron's, like, she'll do a retreat, the Artist Way author, she'll do a retreat and she'll say, do an artist date. You know, it doesn't have to be the thing you do. Like, she's a writer. She writes, prose, but she's like, you don't have to do that every day. Like, get some sidewalk chalk, go do something that just evokes whatever's in there. And like, just let's get it out. We haven't spent enough time spending time in here. And it's sort of a push-pull between knowing that creativity comes from literally being creative and being an artist and playing. And then it's also about being productive and making that, sort of channeling that into the things that are actually going to be working smart. All right. So let me just read a part of this and let's see what it does or where it leads us. Okay. It says, we must make time to pause. Life is not a race to see who can be the busiest and most stressed. If the goal is creating beautiful things and living with the highest vibration, we need to learn how to restore and nurture ourselves. The more our cups are full, the more we have to give. Incorporating some kind of mindful living into my life is what allows me to do this deeper work. It's more effective than making lists or strategizing. It's just as crucial as understanding my business or even leaning into what brings me joy. A daily practice of being planted in the here and now makes a huge difference. With only a few moments of stillness, the compass turns inward and you find that space where I'm outside of the storm and I'm able to hear the truth of whatever is in the inner whisper. All of that really comes through the practice of pausing and resting, right? David Aaron taught me we are human beings, not human doings. It's important to maintain communication with our highest self, with God, the source, spiritual reality, and connect with the flow. By settling into a quiet space that exists beyond the worries and stresses of the past and future and present, you can tap into this unlimited source of abundance where all things are possible. I'm constantly trying to work on this. I remember tears welling in my eyes as I admitted to friends, I don't know how to do weekends. I feel so anxious. I feel like I only know how to do Monday through Friday. How sad is it? How sad is it that I can't enjoy the weekends? There's a beautiful Mary Oliver poem called Wild Geese. And in the poem, she says, you don't have to walk on your knees for 1,000 miles in the desert. We must remind ourselves of this every day. You are loved unconditionally. You don't have to earn it. We often miss this fact when we're too busy working. And that's why I love best-selling author, mother, and entrepreneur's book, Kate Northrup's book. It's called Do Less. It helps us learn to do less and live more. In her book, she notes the way we work in our cult. This is so brilliant. She said, the way we work in our culture is as though we're in a perpetual harvest. But anyone who's grown anything in the earth knows that this is impossible. And that hit me right between the eyes. I often fall prey to the 24/7 entrepreneur mentality. I expect my business to win every day, every month, and every year. And I'm constantly looking for the next big achievement. But life isn't meant to be a series of the greatest successes and projects and milestones. All of the Abrahamic religions teach that within the 7 days of creation, even God took a day for rest. Perhaps what we learn from this is that the work itself is not complete without downtime. We set ourselves up for failure by putting constant pressure on ourselves to produce, but that's not how nature works. There are seasons to every process. The earth also replenishes. It rains, the leaves fall, and the winter comes, and then seeds slowly start to germinate again even more nourished and stronger than before. Imagine how our lives would change and how much more beautiful and rich our work would be if we were energized and present instead of wired and tired. We need to slow down not only to discover our truth, but to create deeper work. The creative process needs space. When do we pause and when do we fill up our cups? When do we restore and when do we replenish? We are constantly comparing ourselves to everyone else as if everybody is having a win every second. And as a result, we're constantly giving ourselves this expectation of what success should look and feel like. And when we don't hit the target every second, we think we're failing. It's taken me my whole life, but I've finally been making space to unwind, take walks without my phone, read books for fun, not for work, hanging out with my kids, not needing to do something extravagant, enjoying moments when nothing's planned, and knowing that it's totally okay to finally catch my breath. We feel a sense of bliss and weightlessness when we surrender to the present moment. We greet ourselves at our own door and arrive to see all the beauty available in the now. Often we also gain clarity about what is true. I have experienced richer ideas about what I want to make and what I long to express when I pause. Inspiration washes over us when we slow down and allow it to catch us. From here, we can take action with a renewed sense of purpose. And then I talk a little about Julia Cameron. Julia Cameron, author of The Artist's Way, was on my show, and she helps us understand this. Through the process of writing what she calls morning pages, you start to get insights and intuition. It's as though you can turn the dial over to receive. If you think of it as being a radio kit, with morning pages, you're sending, with artist dates, you're receiving. And she talked about how she has a prescription for creativity. She says, what I teach is I assign walks. I assign 2 20-minute walks a week. It gives you a sense of well-being. If you've got a feeling like you're in a strange place, in a strange world, when you go out to walk, you take a breath and you say, oh, it's sort of beautiful, isn't it? And then I talked about some research around mindfulness and creating space between our thoughts. My teacher said, rushing feels a lot like living in a state of fight or flight, which lights up our nervous system and dims our critical thinking. Although the internal alarm to escape served us well back in the day, it is usually too dramatic a reaction to the daily stressors of modern life. She said, creating some space between our thoughts and our reactions allows us to reassess the validity of our perceived threats. You become the watcher of your thoughts, which gives you the godlike ability to focus on those that are the most positive and empowered. And I talk about how I went through the UCLA Mindful Awareness Research Center program and how I learned how to stop and actually be present as opposed to being stuck in the thoughts that just keep spinning and spinning and spinning. And then it goes into thoughts about, things that are coming up in our unconscious. And it says our subconscious mind, I just skipping around. Our subconscious mind is charting the course either toward or away from the results that we've been hoping for. We can all learn the strategies, find a mentor, take classes, set meetings, reverse engineer all the action steps necessary to achieve our goals, but we won't get far with limiting thoughts floating in our subconscious. Ultimately, what you believe in, your subconscious mind will determine your results. Before we make a single move, we have to understand the underlying beliefs that created the limitations we live in. And this is some of what we talked about in last week's call when we went over all of those limiting beliefs. So we can kind of skip through that. But it does say that our mind has 70,000 thoughts a day, and most come from the subconscious. And the subconscious mind accounts for just 10% of the total activity. Oh, sorry. It says the conscious mind accounts for 10% of the total activity happening in your brain. The subconscious accounts for the remaining 90%. So it's like a massive iceberg beneath the water, and it's kind of the captain of the ship, unfortunately. I'm skipping through this. So then I go back to this routine. So I said, having a routine that encourages you to slow down is important. Every successful person I've interviewed on my podcast mentions it. If you think about the beauty of music, you can recognize that the pause between the notes is what makes the music possible and powerful. And it's the same thing in our life. By creating a break between receiving information and reacting, between having an idea and taking action, between having a thought and believing it, we create the space for the consciousness to step in, and we move forward with more awareness of what's happening. And I talk about, freedom being a state of mind. Okay, we're going to skip through this. We'll skip through this. Let's see. We're skipping around. There's unlimited potential inside of you, but it takes a daily practice to access it. I'd love to see you doing this work of powerful realignment so the subconscious can begin to support your path. I talked about my friend Sarah Blondin, who has a podcast called Live Awake, and she talked to me about what it means to actually really live awake. And she's a poet, and she reminded me how shamans will often ask someone who's sad or depressed, when did you forget to sing? When did you forget to dance? When did you stop finding refuge in silence? When did you stop being enhanced by stories? And what they're really asking is when the person stopped doing all the things that made their spirit sing. And it's so easy, she said, to fall prey to fear and to forget our hopes because we get lost in panic and anxiety. And she talked about a turning point in her career where she would stop to listen and meditate or take a walk she lives in these like beautiful hills. What else do I want to tell you as I'm skipping through? So then we talked about like finding a process to basically get quiet, however that means. So she said, finding a practice that works for you. It looks different for different people. For some people, it's taking a walk outside. And for other people, it's going on a run or dancing or doing breath work or doing something creative. I'm skipping around. And this was also powerful. She was talking about, she said, we were talking about the different voices inside of us, the different feelings that we have. And she said, all of the pieces of ourself, picture them like on a bus. At any given point, one of those things is driving the bus. And so to notice that when fear starts coming up and starts to drive the bus, or when our ego-based thoughts want to keep us locked in the fear, the guilt, the shame, the unworthiness, when those start coming up, we know them because it doesn't feel good in your body. It feels like a black hole could start to take you down. You literally feel it when you start to tune in. She said, it's not about alienating those feelings or trying to eradicate them. It's actually about naming it, seeing it, and genuinely asking this to take a back seat in the bus. Like this, she said, fear, I see you. I hear you. I get that you really, really are afraid to go do X, Y, or Z, the thing that you know you should be doing to move your business or whatever forward. I'm going to hold you right here and I'm going to ask you to take a back seat. I'm going to ask that my heart, that my soul, that the part of me that knows I'm capable, that this part of me comes forward and starts to drive the bus. I love that. And then I closed it out by talking about how during college I lived in Spain, in Barcelona, and I was all over Europe, and how in the middle of the day, people would take a nap, like a siesta, and how powerful that was to see people like literally stop and live life and then come back, and how much more like energy we have when we stop. So, so here are some takeaways. I just kind of skipped through the chapter. Slowing down puts you in direct communication with your higher self. It's a powerful tool to gain clarity and some like alignment around the next step. And we talked about how we need to kind of like create the vessel to receive these like synchronicities, right? And let's see. So that chapter is a little bit of two pieces. It's sort of partly what we talked about last week with sort of the things that come up for us that stand in our way. But the main purpose that I wanted to talk about, why I brought it up today, is about that creative piece. You know, like we are going to do richer work when we actually have the time to drop in. And that's why I love the analogy of a harvest, right? Like imagine if you think about the tomatoes that we eat in the United States versus tomatoes that you'll have in Tuscany. When you go to Italy, how many of you have ever been to Italy? Anyone ever been there? Right? Can you remember how delicious the food is there? Yeah, because the tomatoes taste like tomatoes. They don't need balsamic vinegar on them. They don't need anything. They're so good. Why is that? Because what we've done with a lot of our food in this country is we just want to keep reaping it out of the ground, right? We want a faster, bigger tomato. So we don't let it seep into the earth. We don't give it time, right? And that's not how anyone who's ever been on the land, who's ever farmed anything knows that like there's a whole reason to the waning and the waxing of how we sort of deal with the earth, right? Like we want to give it time. The deeper you sort of mix it, the deeper it grows into the ground, the more nutrients it has. And then, yeah, it takes longer, but then what comes is it's more potent, right? As opposed to just ripping it out of the ground all the time. You just keep, sort of raping the ground of all of its stuff, right? Constantly. And then you're asking it to just do it again and again and again. It's like, it's a problem, right? It's not going to be great. So as an artist, I think two really important things. Number one, I think we do live that way as if our business should have a win every day. How many of you feel like you relate to that feeling? Like you're supposed to be posting something. I mean, I feel that way, especially once you have some success. It's like, shouldn't I be posting a win every day on Instagram and on Facebook? Shouldn't I have a headline? It's like, what's wrong? But no one's business is really like that. And nobody's life is really like that. Because where then is the time to do the deep work to make the thing that should make headlines? Like, where does that come? Like most writers, if you talk to them, they'll be like, yeah, I lived a life and then I wrote about it. I went on sabbatical and I found something to write, or I went through this thing and I had a story to tell, right? So we're not really in it for the long haul if we're just looking at trying to like get the thing every single day to come out of the machine. Like that's not really, there's no depth to that. So what's the process then that's going to allow for us to be in this for the long haul? How do we get into alignment with ourselves? Well, we have to give ourselves permission to actually be an artist, which means fuel yourself, fill your cup up. Like there should be something you do for inspiration every week. Like either you're going to see a play that's going to make you feel something, or you go to someone's art show, even if it's like it's visual art, it doesn't matter. Go to a gallery, take a surf lesson for the first time. Do something to pull you into a feeling, an emotion, an experience. And that's got to be there. I mean, if it's not there, you're kind of cutting, you're kind of like dulling what you have to share. Does this make sense? So I've started, just right before I did this, I did 3 podcasts today and I was feeling sort of depleted, right? I needed to do something. And so I try to do this now every day. I just stop, put my phone down, don't take it with me, walk outside into the sun, lift my face to the sun, just feel the sun on my face, and then take a walk for like 30 minutes without my phone, where I'm not working. I'm just walking. And it's so simple and it's changing my life. Like just having those 30 minutes. And sure enough, I will always come back and I'm like, you know who I should write to? You know what I should do? Oh, I just got it. This is the thing I really want to teach. This is the thing I really want to say. This is the thing I really want to work on. But those things have to come in, right? Those things have to come in. And we have to make space to let them in, right? Imagine if you are holding, a bunch of things, your arms are full of groceries and you see your friend, you're walking out of the grocery store, you see your friend and she goes to give you a hug and you're like, you do like a side hug because like your arms are full, right? You can't take anything in because you're full. When you're full, when your mind is full, when you're sitting there on the phone, you're sitting there on your email and you're going, why don't I know the next thing to do? It's like there's no room for the inspiration to come. Steve Jobs was famous for talking about how he would take a walk twice a day. He would just stop and go take a walk. And those walks were everything, because by going on the walk, he'd come back and it was like, oh, wait a minute. I had an idea. Oh, I was reminded. I got some space from all the stimulation that's coming in. I was reminded what I have to say or what I want to share. Oh, I'm so glad I took a break, So that's got to be part of this process. And I think it's a balance between doing nothing in a productive way, which is what I'm talking about, like literally making time not to be productive, but to actually to receive, doing that. That's got to be a balance between doing that and then the things that we do that we know are the most vital things, right? And getting out of our own way and doing them. Does anyone want to share anything about what I'm saying? Any thoughts, any questions, any things that are coming up that feel like that feel like impediments to this process, to this work? Anyone want to share anything? If you do, you can raise your hand in the upper right corner. Or you could just go like this if you don't know how to raise your hand. Anyone have any thoughts, questions? Anyone want to share where they're at right now in the midst of this journey that they want support around, or they want to just share? I'm here to listen. Scott, Sonic, do you hear me? Where are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Well, congratulations on the book.
Thank you. Where are you at?
I'm in Phoenix, Tempe, Arizona, which is a subdivision of Phoenix.
Yeah, cool.
And so I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what's going on with me. Is I'm like totally relating to this because this is like everything I'm doing right now. I'm doing like I'm from Canada, in Ontario, and I'm just started. This is week 2 of like a 5-month trip to Phoenix and Nevada and then California. And so, yeah, all this stuff just completely ties in. And so this is kind of like, it's like an inspiration trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was writing for so long at my house in London, Ontario. And you get to a point where it becomes stagnant and you got to find a way to kind of get through that.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't know if I really have a question, but I just kind of wanted to talk because what really influenced me a lot, and maybe you could just talk about it more, is just about momentum. Because that was the one thing that you said during like the free week, that it's like, that really stuck with me. And I don't know if you guys know like Christina C, but she's here as well. And we've been kind of talking a lot, trying to figure out how to get momentum. So yeah, I just wanted to say, like, even just being here, it's like super inspirational. Like I've already written like 10 pages of songs like that. Awesome. I probably wouldn't have been inspired to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Just trying to like get some momentum.
Yeah. I love that you really get it and you're really receiving it, and I can feel it. It's really genuine. And by the way, that's how we move through the world, is we're humans. So it's all feeling. So you could tell when someone's genuine, and that only comes because you're in this process. And when you actually start to do things, you start to feel it, right? Like people always want to like think their way to the breakthrough. I had Barbara Corcoran on my podcast today. She's amazing. And it is all about momentum. And she said she meets all these people who are like, I'm going to just think about it. I'll get there, think it over. And she's like, yeah, last time I checked, she's like, I don't know, I'm 70 years old. She's like, I've never seen that work. Like, you're not going to think your way to a breakthrough. Like there's no compass and charts in here. It's all from action. And because when we get into action, we realize things are less scary than we think. We get clarity around what we're actually doing. We get momentum because we start to talk to other people. We start to find out what people want or need. And we start to realize that there's more possibility over here. And it makes us then fuel to do more. And she's actually a great example, Barbara Corcoran. You guys know who she is? Raise your hand. You know who she is? She's on a show called Shark Tank. She's a billionaire. She started out one of 10 children, Irish Catholic family. Her parents slept on the couch. All 10 kids shared a bedroom. She was a waitress in a diner in New Jersey. And she started dating a guy, and he gave her $1,000 as a loan and said, why don't you start a real estate business? And she was like, okay. And anyway, she grew it to 66 million. She sold it for $66 million, grew it to 1,000 employees. And I said to her, what do you think makes a person successful? And it's all about momentum. And she said, when I meet people, she said, all I want to know is that the person is injured. I don't want the smart one. I don't want the one with the MBA. I want the one who's been through loss, death, grief, addiction, because that person is resilient. So she said, show me a person who's resilient and hungry and injured, who's been through it. That's a person who's successful. Don't show me someone who's too smart. She goes, the people who come on Shark Tank, who went to Harvard, who they can give me all the review, like the processes, the data. She's like, they're too smart. And the reason they're too smart is because they don't have the street. They don't have it from the street, and they're not hungry enough. So they're going to overanalyze it. It's going to actually get in their own way. And she's right. She's totally right. So we talked about how and this is the exact, I could literally it's a carbon copy of every conversation I've had. The same conversation I had with Howard Schultz, same conversation I had with Brian Grazer. Brian Grazer was like a D student. Howard Schultz grew up in public housing. And what they all have in common is the momentum part. Like everyone has something genuinely cool to share, but most people fall victim to all the spinning thoughts. And I'll give you a great analogy. My friend Alex Benayan, how many people know about a book called The Third Door? Yes? No? Ever heard of it? He was on my show. He's adorable. I just saw him this week. And just to reiterate this, because it's so important, talking about momentum. So Alex is 27. He was at USC pre-med when he was 19 and he was miserable. He was like, I got to get out of here. And he went to the library the night before finals. And while people were studying, he was in the library looking for a book on like how to be successful because he wanted to drop out of school so badly. And he couldn't find a book that would be something that actually helped him. So he was like, what if I go write the book? I'm going to interview Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, all the biggies, and I'll ask them what they would tell an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid like me on how to be successful. And he set out to write the book, and he did. He interviewed Lady Gaga, Maya Angelou, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Steven Spielberg. It's amazing. And every interview took him like a year to get to that person. Like he slept on the floor of a Holiday Inn in Omaha with a cockroach, like walking across, like he tried to get to Warren Buffett. He tried to get to Steven Spielberg a million different ways. Like he finally got into each of these people. Anyway, he wrote a book called The Third Door because what he realized is that every single person, all of their advice led back to the third door. And what he means is it's all about taking action and momentum. And here's the analogy. The analogy is that you go to a nightclub and there's a line, that first door. The line is wrapped around the block. You guys know the line. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen the first door. You know what that first door looks like. And most people stand in that line. Okay. Then there's the second door for people whose last name is Kardashian. You're on the VIP list. They get in through the second door. So the people on the first line going in the first door are like, oh, well, those are the lucky people. They're on the VIP list. That's the second door. But Alex's contention is that there is always, always, always a third door. And the third door, he said, is the door that all those people took. Bill Gates, Steven Spielberg, Lady Gaga. They weren't on the VIP list. Now he says, and this is so brilliant, that walking through the third door is not hard. And finding the third door is not hard. He said the hard part is leaving the line. The hard part is getting out of line. Leaving the first line. Now, what is that? That is all the resistance and all the garbage and all the self-doubt that tells you, why would I leave this line? I'm going to look like an idiot. The person probably won't even speak to me. They won't write me back. There's no way. I'll just stay here. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get rejected. Who am I to do this? That people tell me like, I'm going to piss all these other first liners off. Like they're going to think, who's he to do that? Who's with me? Who hears what I'm saying? Who relates? Yep.
I totally do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can
and
relate.
Then there's a few people, right? They're like, I'm out. Now, that moment is the beginning of all the success. You got to get out of line.
Can I just add a little story of my own where
Sure.
I just went to the Junos in which is like basically it's like the Canadian Music Awards in March. And I got into I kind of took like a third door route to get into like the big conference at the Junos. So it's kind of cool. And me coming to here in Phoenix was kind of like almost subconsciously because I've always been like a really big Alice Cooper fan. So it's almost like, and he moved from Detroit, Michigan, which is right across the border from Windsor in Ontario, which is where I'm from. As well. So he moves down here in Phoenix. So it's like I'm trying to kind of find the third door to try to meet Alice Cooper. I sent him an email, his booking agent an email, like, can I take Alice out for lunch or for coffee? So yeah, it's all very motivating. And I'm just kind of still studying that.
The momentum comes from massive action, right? So like when you leave the line, then you got to really own that. Right? So it's like, I'm done. I'm out. Like I'm going for it, right? I'm going to walk through the third door. And it doesn't take very much to do it. It's just called see, you have to really leave the line. Like you can't kind of leave the line. Now you're like stuck in no man's land. Kind of leaving the line is, I want to be in the third door, but I'm still so scared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to like send an email, but then I'm going to get back in line. And then if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to tell everyone in the first line how there's no third door and it doesn't work. And that's really not leaving the line, right? Really leaving the line is, I don't care if I have to go to Omaha on a plane with no guarantee that Warren Buffett's going to talk to me. I'm going to go. And he went 6 times. And the reason he did that is because the person he wanted to interview more than anyone was Bill Gates. And he knew that Warren Buffett was best friends with Bill Gates. And he couldn't get into Bill Gates' office, so he was willing to do anything to finally get Warren Buffett's attention so that he could then call Bill Gates' office and say, I interviewed Warren Buffett, I want to interview you. And he was willing to do it. And all of the people that have done it, it's just called massive action. Yes, some people won't like it. Yes, you're going to feel like a fool some of the time. You've already decided you're okay with that because all of that feels so much less painful than standing in the line and knowing as a guarantee you're not getting into the club, guaranteed, because you're standing in line and the line is 7 billion people long and you've guaranteed it, you are not getting in. So instead, what you then realize is there's like 16 people trying to get in the third door and they all get in. They all get in. And those are all the people that are on my show. None of them are like, there's nothing else they all have in common. Barbara Corcoran's 70 years old, right? Then Alex Benayan's 27. Alex Benayan's from Iran and he's like lived in LA his whole life. Barbara Corcoran is Irish Catholic and she grew up in New Jersey. They're not the same age. They're not the same religion. They're not the same gender. They don't have the same IQ. He went to USC pre-med. She barely graduated from high school. What do they have in common? Nothing except for their bravery and their willingness to take massive action and do it over and over and over again. She said, I said to her, and same thing with Alex, by the way, and same thing with me. I said to her, what do you tell a person in business who hits the wall? And she's like, you're in business. Congrats. Like, that's how you know you're in business. You're hitting the wall. Like, this is what it is, right? Like, you're in it. How do you know you're in a good relationship? The very first time my husband and I sat down with a therapist, he said, what do you fight about? And I was like, why do you want to focus on the fighting? He's like, because you need to fight. You just need to fight well. You're going to fight all the time. 70% of the time, every good couple, 70% of the time, you're going to miss each other and you're going to fight. So I just want to make sure that you fight well. If you're in business, you're going to hit a dip. You're going to hit a wall. You're going to hit a recession. You're going to hit a moment where you got to who moved my cheese? You got to change it up. You got to go from printing CDs to streaming. You're going to find a competitor. That means you're in business. That means you're doing it well. So how do you stay in it, right? So we've just got to take massive action. And maybe this will help you, think about that first line. And here's the thing. I get it. I have compassion. I understand why people are stuck in that first line, but you're stronger than that. And you know it, or else you wouldn't be here, because I am not, I'm not like a surface person. So you're only here because you're willing to go into the belly of the beast. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. Right. And I know that you can do it. You just got to turn that volume way up. And it's like, here's the thing. It's very liberating to know that in this moment, I guarantee you there's 12 people who don't like you and think you're dumb. It's great. Thank God. Because now who cares? It's like, there have been people talking about me, since I'm 7. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's great. It's all fine. No one is liked by everyone. There are people who are like, they don't like foreign movies, or they don't like, good restaurants. They'd rather eat at McDonald's. It's all fine. It doesn't matter. It's so irrelevant. There's 7 billion people. We're going to let 6 people who are going to be like, who does he think he is? So what? Or the person's going to not respond to your email or tell you you're stupid. I remember starting out in music. Oh God, I wish I could find this woman's email. I wonder if I could find it. This woman sent me an email. I bet I have it because I keep everything. She was at Warner Brothers. I sent this woman an email. I'll not forget it because there's very few like this, but I remember sending this woman a song or two, and she was like, this is embarrassing. Like, don't ever send anyone music ever again because it's so bad. I got to like search. Oh, God, how would I find it? I got to look for it. And I remember getting that email and being like, I am an idiot. She was like, this song is so mediocre. So what? So what? Let her think it. Who cares? You know? And that's why every time I meet somebody who's successful, I just feel like hugging that person because I'm like, I know how courageous you are. I know how much crap you took and you did it anyway. It's the best. It's amazing. And then that's why she said, yeah, Justina gets it. But that's why Barbara Corcoran said, if you want to be successful, show me an injured person because you got resilience. You've been through so much harder things than building this business. This is nothing compared to what you've been through. You know that. So yeah, massive, massive action. And here's what's so fun about it. As scary as we're making it, it's mostly so easy. It's mostly that if you actually took massive action and you sent 8 emails a day and you wrote 4 songs a month and produced them like you said you would, and you got on the phone with this producer, this co-writer, this one goes, oh, I know who we could send this to. And this one goes, oh, I'm so glad you wrote it to me. And by the way, I have a project, you have a song like this. And it actually starts to move. And people love people who are generous and empathetic. And you're going to be like, oh, this is so much easier than I thought. The people who are hanging out around the third door are so much easier to deal with than the people in the first door. So just get out of there and it's going to start to flow. Lala, I want to answer your question. I see your hands up. What's going on?
Hey, well, you just asked if anyone wanted to share. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Back when you were asking if anyone wanted to share, I just wanted to because I've been dealing with time management problems. Because I've just got so much on my plate, and I thought it was interesting because I've been listening to you so much. I got your book on audio and hard copy. So
thank you, girlfriend.
And I want you to sign it when I come in February and get to meet you. So, but you know, I've heard you say a couple times that we need to, that like even for yourself, that you needed to take taking a breath and, you know, learning how to actually take them off. And, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, and I said, you know what, they said something about the weekend. And I go, you know, I don't even think about like weekends because I don't really consider myself having a weekend because I just work from the time I get up in the morning until the time I go to bed at night. And I work straight through the weekends, and there's no delineation between work days and work nights, or work days and weekend days. And so I really made a decision a couple weeks ago that I was going to make a conscious effort to stop working at a certain time every night, and also to give myself at least a day on the weekend or part of a day on the weekend to kind of deconstruct and just take time out for myself and to do something fun. And I'm telling you what, I am getting more stuff done now because I've had to like really prioritize and list things out. And it's helping me by taking that time. I'm actually getting more done now, which is so amazing. And and I also started a little group of friends that are coming over, and we're listening to your podcast together.
That's sweet.
And it's so flippin' inspiring.
Good.
It
is inspiring. I get inspired because it's not just me. It's like not like the Cathy show. It's like I'm interviewing these people who have such incredible things to share, and I get an hour with them. So it's like you get this like masterclass, and I have a way of setting it up. So I feel like, you know, I don't ever prep with like these like canned questions. I sort of ask them questions as we're going to really get to the root of it. And I feel like there is so much good stuff there. Just to comment on what you said, I do feel like busy has been like the new glorified garbage. It's like, I'm so busy. If you're so busy, I don't know how productive you can be, you know? The people I know who are really successful, they like to keep it lean. It's like there should be some white space in the calendar because, again, the really brilliant thing you need to create is only going to come when you have a few minutes off. And then you go, oh my God, do you know what I really need to do? I need to write to this person, or, oh my gosh, I'm not even, doing the thing I need to do. My sound is something different. That's what's been in the way. I haven't been stepping into my authenticity. Now I know what it is. Like, it's gonna come. It's gonna come.
Yeah.
And by the way, how many of you heard the Colby Calais episode? Did you guys hear her? So good. So good. She's literally become like one of my friends. Let me see if I can show you, but she's so cute. Look what she said. Where's her text message? I was texting with her the other day, and she was saying to me, she's like, that episode, she's like, it was like a therapy session, because we talked a lot about her stage fright, and her story is crazy, you guys. I mean, talk about persistence. She actually didn't know any of this was going to happen. She auditioned for American Idol twice and got rejected twice. And they're so smart, right? I mean, here she was standing in line with 10,000 people, and she sang bubbly. She had written the first and chorus. So the second audition, she sang it. They were like, nope. And she was like, all right, all right, fine. And then her best friend put it on MySpace. And, when she was in high school, she didn't audition to be the lead in any play because she had so much stage fright. So, her father is a huge producer, and she didn't have to audition for American Idol. Her dad did Fleetwood Mac. Like, he could call anybody. She actually didn't want to do it. She was like, her friends told her to audition for American Idol. So she did. And then she just wanted to see like how far she could get. And then her friends put the song on MySpace. She hated performing. She was like, oh, maybe I'll get to like whatever. So funny. And she was in therapy, like tremendous amounts of therapy while she was on the road, because she has extreme anxiety around performing. So she used to like almost feel like she was going to vomit, and be like shuddering with panic attacks, like really like super scary and awful. And so we got into the belly of that, because it's easy to look at someone and be like, super lucky, super famous. And she's like, yeah. And imagine you're terrified and you have to go and play a show for 20,000 people. Try that on, see what that's like. And I got it. Like I felt it. And so she started to cry during the conversation, because I started to cry because I actually really got it. I was like, I can't imagine doing something like that if I was really, truly terrified. Because I would personally probably be scared, but I don't know that I have stage fright, but I can't even imagine. So anyway, that was really cool. And I'm glad you guys are listening to the show. And good. It's important to not be busy so we can actually be productive. One more. Gladstone, are you here, Jenna? Where is she?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey.
Hi. I totally get what you're saying about the resting, and I've actually been trying to do that recently myself. But I'm kind of struggling going back and forth between trying to be inspired, trying to rest, and trying to really focus on my strengths, and then also feeling overwhelmed with like, I gotta also learn how to mix, and I gotta master and produce, and like feeling like I have to be a specialist in everything. And I know we're like trying to collaborate, but so far I haven't been able to collaborate with people who are like really specializing in those different areas. So it's like I'm fighting with myself in feeling overwhelmed with trying to be all things, and also trying to be, take the space and take the time to be inspired. So I don't know how to.
I got it. I'll tell you what I would say to you. So see, here's exactly the thing is, when we don't stop and pause and notice all of that, right? We just like stay in that place of feeling overwhelmed. It's really hard to get things done. It's really hard to intentionally make a decision and know what thing to do, right? So the mind is spinning, right? Right now, there's a lot spinning in there. I got to mix this. I got to master this. I got to pause, but I also got to be inspired by it, right? So we're just like in this thing, right? There's no compass and charts in that place. There's no way out. There's no direction. It's just like a tornado. Picture like a storm, right? And picture like you're standing inside a storm and it's just going like this. It's like a tornado. You're just like standing in it. And you're like, where do I go? Oh my God, this is so hard. How am I supposed to know what to do, right? It's like you can barely see. It's so much going on like this, right? Now imagine if you were looking at the storm inside the house and you're looking through the window and you see the storm, right? And you see the snow falling and you're looking at it rather than being inside of it. Okay. So when you do like basic, and I'm talking like no one actually has to even do it this way. For some people, they don't like to do meditation. It makes them feel more anxious. And for some people, they don't want to do breath work, or for some, like everyone's emotion, right, is energy in motion. We have to move the energy and we have to be able to actually find peace, find calm, so that you can I'm just going to mute everyone because there's a lot of weird talking. So I'll unmute you in a second, but what happens is the mind is like this, right? And it just feels pretty stressful. So whenever that's going on, it's going to be hard to know what to do. And so if we want to be guided, right, we have incredible wisdom and answers, but the answers are in here. They're not in here. They're in here. So we have to stop thinking about all the different things we have to do for a second, maybe 2 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, once a week, and take a deep breath and feel our feet on the ground. Just ground us in this moment. Take a deep breath, another deep breath, and you're like, I'm in this moment. And now see if you can notice how many thoughts are going on. And by just noticing them, now you're not living in them. You're watching them like clouds passing across the sky. You're just, I got to mix this thing. I'm stressed about that. Oh my God. And then you can notice how each one comes with a tail of like 1,000 thoughts, and see all those thoughts create feelings. And normally there's stress attached to it. So what happens is you think one thought, which leads to 6 more. Now the cortisol is raising in your body. Now you're super stressed out. Now you're thinking more. Now the thoughts are coming faster, faster, faster. Now you're caught in it. Now you're super stressed out and you're like, now you're overwhelmed. Now you're shutting down. Now you can't do anything because you're just stressed. So the way it works is your mind is plugged into your nervous system. That's legit. That's the way it works. And then your nervous system is plugged into your immune system. That's a whole nother thing, and how stress affects the body. That's separate. But what's amazing is that 25 years ago, we had no brain science. We hadn't studied the brain. So people would just go, I guess I'm in a bad mood. I don't know anything about it. But now we've studied it. We know how it works. So when we don't know what to do and we're feeling overwhelmed and we're like, I'm so stressed out, I'm just so frustrated, I have this thing I want to do and I don't know, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do this. Like, we have to take a deep breath and notice what's going on. And just because you think a thought doesn't make it true. Not a fact, just a thought. So now you have all these thoughts, all the information, all the things you're supposed to do. If you can back up from it, get some distance from it, and then look at it all and go, whoa, that doesn't need to be so weighted. I can't find this person. What am I? It's like, just notice, oh my God, I'm starting to feel stressed out. And then you ask yourself, what do I really need to do in this moment? Forgetting all of that. And you're like, oh, I just need to pick up my guitar right now. Or you know what? I think I'm just frightened, but I think I need to set up a co-write. And I'm going to do it. Or you know what? I've been feeling super stressed because I don't have anyone to record my music or mix it. So when I get a little distance from all of that, if that's really the next thing that I need to do, okay, how could I be resourceful and find the answer? Well, if I can't find it in this class, where are there other musicians? Like, what Facebook groups could I post on? But there's no way to react with clarity when you can't see. My mindfulness teacher used to take a pitcher of water, and she put rocks in the bottom of it. And then she would take baking soda, and she would start to pour the baking soda into the water, and the water gets murkier and murkier, and you can't see. It's not clear anymore. You can't see the rocks. You can't see anything. You can't see through the pitcher anymore. It's like this murky baking soda, right? That's the mind. Then she would say, now take your hand and put your hand on your belly and take a few deep breaths and just watch the water settle. And you would just breathe in and out. And as you just breathe, the water starts to settle and all the baking soda goes to the bottom. And oh my God, in 14 seconds, I now can see through it. It's clear again. And now I know what to do. Do you know what I'm saying? There is multitasking going on. That's called life, right? We got to sleep, and then we got to get up. We got to eat, and then we got to rest, and then we got to do. That's true. There's a way to drive a car. You got to hit the gas, then the brake. You got to put your left turn signal on. Yep, it's true. That can feel really overwhelming when you're starting. When do I press this? When you're going to get it. You're going to start to know how that flows and it starts to get super seamless. And it is confusing. It's do I pause or do I go? That just sounds to me like we just need to come home to ourselves a little bit more right now. Come back home and get out of all of this intensity because it's making us feel bad, starting to bring us down. And that's what I mean by we need to have that balance, because it's so easy then to go, what am I not doing? Oh my God, where am I not? I'm supposed to be at this goal, that goal. What did I not do? It is a balance. Okay, it's a balance. And it's scary sometimes and it feels overwhelming, but you're going to get it. And essentially, the steps are not hard. The steps are simple. It's the way that we overthink and put pressure on ourselves that's really hard. Because the steps are the same few steps. It's we're going to write music, right? So we're going to write melodies and lyrics. That's stuff that we've done before, except this time, especially since it's a business, is we're going to write from a place of beginning with the end in mind. We're going to think about our client, and we're going to continue to research and get to know our client by listening to what it is that they need and use and listening in on the conversations of people who come in this class. And we're going to get comfortable and clearer on how to write the kinds of stories that help these clients to do their work so we can add value and they can become a patron of ours and pay us. And those steps are actually not so difficult, but when we overthink it and we tell ourselves, we got to do it, and you got to do it well, and you got to do it well now, and the first song has to be amazing, and then the second song, and you better get 15, and that starts to feel really not doable, and it makes it pretty not fun, and we lose a lot of the joy in it. And now we're going to feel oh God, and is this right? And is that right? It's nope. I think we got to just surrender to the process and rinse and repeat. And it's do that process at least 15 times before we start to overwhelm ourselves with the mix and the master. It's who am I writing for? What's the prompt there creatively? What's the lyric? What's the story I'm telling? Let me write that song. Let me finish that song. Let me do that again for a different prompt. Let me do that again. Let me do that again. Oh my God, by song 8, I'm writing some good songs. They're not so on the nose anymore. I'm figuring out how to tell a story in a way that still feels pretty artistic. That's cool. Song 11, song 12. This is cool. It's coming out. I'm getting it. I'm getting better at being really clear in the choruses and in the verses. It's getting cooler. I'm figuring out how to do this, and I'm getting my rhythm with songwriters and collaborators. And we're both coming to the collaboration moment, having already done some homework. So that's good. And now I got a rhythm going, and I'm a little less scared of writing with new people. And I found 2 people who I really like writing with by song 12. So that's cool. All right. And now we're going to look back. I'm going to pick the 3 best ones, and I'm going to produce those. And I'm not going to feel overwhelmed because I know that there's going to be several people who can mix and master. There's thousands of those people. So I'm going to just put it out there. Maybe I'll even offer a challenge. I'll say, I need someone to do this. Who can go ahead and do a mix of this and see which one is best. And I'll get people to send in their mixes and I'll pick the one I like best. Because there's hungry people out there who are talented, who just graduated from different music schools, and they probably know how to mix a track from their laptop. So there's an abundance of people to mix and master. We just got to get you in a rhythm where you're not beating yourself up and you're able to just like find the flow, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's really good, actually. Not feeling like I have to be the one who's going to do everything.
No.
Because that's why I start thinking, oh, I have to learn how to mix and master and
No.
be a producer too, which.
When I first moved to LA, I remember driving to Sam Ash and I got myself like Pro Tools and speakers and a MIDI box. And I was like reading the instructions and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Like, I don't know how to do any of this. So I'm going to start from scratch when like what I know how to do is sing and like write songs. And I'm going to also now that is so dumb. It's like, get resourceful, but I didn't know that at first. It was like, it's smart. You're thinking like, I'm going to do it all, I want to live in a beautiful home. All right, I'm going to go to Home Depot and get some wood. Wait a minute. I think I'm going to find a contractor. Hang on a second. I think I just know what I like, and I can't afford it all in cash. Too bad. Wait a minute. I can find a bank to give me a mortgage. Smarter. You know what I mean? It's like you start to get resourceful and you collaborate with people. And most people who've done anything will tell you, I don't know how to build a car. I don't know how to get to space, but I can figure out 15 people who can each do different things that I can't do. And together we can get there. Right. So that's why I want you to put it out there. But the best thing to do before you even start that is to just really get clear and excited and creatively in the flow so that you then have a few songs from this pile of songs you've created that you're like, these are the ones I'm really excited about. I'm going to invest the time in making these songs fully, come to life. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. I'm so glad that we had this conversation and you guys asked those 2 questions because it's important. All of these things are super important. So how many of you are coming in February? Just curious. It's going to be so fun. Last spring, we did a big event like this. Awesome. And then a week later, I did an event for my podcast audience. And I don't know why, I'm just telling you the truth. For some reason, I was like let down because I had so much more fun at the music event than I did at my podcast event. It was just the energy in the room. It was such fire. It was amazing to be a part of it. So I'm really excited about it. I mean, I think that is saying a lot. It's just the truth. And I told everybody, I was like, oh, it was a fun event, but I was missing the musicians from last week. It was so great. I just happened to do them back to back. So it's going to be super cool. I'm going to figure out something extra special that we can do, sort of like a VIP, like a party or a dinner or a meetup or something for those of you who were kind enough to buy 2 of my books, because I want to make it extra kind. And for those of you who did that, who are not coming in, maybe I can do something online. So let me think that through and I'll get back to you on that. And yeah, if you're not a reader, but you're like, I want to listen to the audiobook because you don't have to read it. You can just listen to it. All right. I have to take my daughter to an appointment today, but thank you for giving me yesterday. I was so exhausted last week there was so much stimulation from the book. It was like literally nonstop. And so yesterday morning, I was just like taking a walk on the beach. That's where I was yesterday morning and breathing. So thank you for that. You guys are awesome. And thank you for all your sweet words and your comments. And I hope that we, got something out of today. I loved really talking about leaving that line. I think you guys should hold on to that. And I love it if you guys could inspire each other by taking action on what we talked about today, which is, can you do something between now and Friday that's productive in a sense of it being just time to pause? Like, can you take yourself to see a movie by yourself? can you take yourself to a concert? Can you take yourself to an art class? Can you just take a walk for 45 minutes or 30 or 20 without your phone? And then would you post about it? Because I'd love to see those posts. They make me feel good and energized, but I think that you would help each other. And I just wonder what little whispers or inklings or how much more reserve there is in there when we do a little bit of that. I'd love to hear that. And also, just, I didn't know I was going to mention it, but I mentioned her in my book. Sarah Blondin has it's on the app. I think it's called Headspace. It's like a meditation app. And she has this podcast called Live Awake. And then in the Headspace app, she has like this course of like 12 7-minute meditations. But you could also hear her on her Live Awake podcast. It's just so beautiful. Like her words, like it's like kind of like a guided meditation, and it's really well done. I don't know if you want to check that out, but it's free and it's really cool. Her name is Sarah Blondin, Blodin. All right. I love you guys. You got this. Let's leave that first line. What do you say? Let's get out of there. Let's get out of there. We're done. We're done with that line. Right? Let's get out of there. Anyone who's in LA next Monday night, how many of you are in LA? Some of you, right? Some of you? I'll be doing my first official book signing at Romans in Pasadena next Monday night, November 25th at 7 p.m. on Colorado. I will be like speaking, reading some of the book, doing Q&A. I'll take pictures with you. I'll sign your books. If you're in LA, anywhere near LA, and you want to come next Monday night, come hang with me. And that's it. I love you guys. I really do. I believe in you, or else I wouldn't be doing this. And I will talk to you soon.